It's funny because I feel like I talked about Jim Miller so much in the last one, just given the Scott Holtzman fight that I enjoyed so much. But Joe Solecki, Jim Miller, finishing off the prelims here. I liked the finish that Joe Solecki kind of locked in his previous fight. When you think about standing guillotines, things like that, those are all really really fun to watch. I believe that was Austin Hubbard, and it's fun, right? Like for me, those kinds of finishes always look great. I wouldn't want to be the guy on the other side of it, but at the same time, I think that they always stand out. Whether it looks like it's a one-sided event or not, they're just finishes that always look the best. And now he's going to get a guy who has a pretty sound grappling game. I think that Jim Miller's dirty boxing is, classic style, right? If you want to get in close on Jim Miller, you best be ready for those clinches, and you best be ready for all that clinch work because he brings it. He's got elbows for days. He's got punches for days. And if you want to get in close, you can definitely lock up some good triangles and arm bars. That's where I think Joe Solecki is kind of bringing that new breed style, right? He's not very old. He's coming in at 27 years old. I think that when you look at the people he's fought so far, this to me is his biggest fight so far. I'm really excited for him to at least get his feet wet with this kind of a caliber fighter. I always say this, right? And I know fighters can't look at it that way, but win or lose for me, this is going to be an incredible experience for Joe Solecki. I think that he's going to come out of there being very aware of what he's been able to do well and not so well at this level of the UFC. Because the one thing I kind of like is, not so much of a size difference, but he's thrown kicks really well. And I think that that's going to help him a lot. I think that if you can keep this guy at bay, avoid getting in close on Jim Miller because Jim Miller just likes to throw tight punches and he likes to box you up, but he's not that crisp. I do think that he can get outstruck a lot. Scott Holtzman was able to piece him up quite a bit. I think that in this case, you just don't want to fight in areas where, you're seeing Jim kind of get any momentum. In his fight where he beat Jordan Griffin by, not Jordan Griffin, sorry, Roosevelt Roberts via submission. That was a fight where I felt Roosevelt just walked right into it, right? I felt like that was a fight where Jim Miller used the experience and pulled off exactly the type of win you would expect him to win in a similar fight. I don't think Joe Solecki's making those same mistakes. I think that he's actually very well versed when it comes to the grappling game, and he's shown really good patience on the feet. That's what I like the most because if you're going to rush in on a guy like Jim Miller, I think he will be able to take advantage. And the one thing about Jim is we know that he can go 3 rounds, no problem. We know that he can take damage. So with him, it's about getting in the most opportune positions, trying to find ways that you might be able to finish him because he's not an easy guy to get out of there. And I think that if it's going to go 3 rounds, which it very well could because of how good Jim Miller's grappling can be, especially defensively, it's going to come down to a lot of these distance strikes. I don't think Jim's that much of a kicker. I think he likes to throw maybe some leg kicks, body kicks here and there, but Solecki can use a lot of that leg length, and he can use the way he's just athletic. I like the athleticism here. I've seen him kick and he kicks well. Those are the things you want to do to keep Jim Miller at bay because like I said, dirty boxing, clinch work. That's what all these old school fighters love. It's what we all got brought up in and watching. And I think that's where, you want to turn this into a bloody affair, a close affair, that kind of fight. You're fighting Jim Miller's fight. And I think that making him aggressive, forcing him to be, impatient, kind of dictating pace the way you'd want to, and not let him find those easy openings to land big shots or even get takedowns into opportune positions. You don't want him crawling all over you. And I think that's kind of the same thing where Jim Miller's going to have some confidence. I don't think he's going to have to respect that whole grappling side of things because I don't think he's getting standing guillotine by anybody at this level. And so when I'm looking at both guys, it's like the perfect prospect versus, veteran / legend, in my opinion. I think that Solecki is just a little past that true prospect mark because I think with the type of wins he's putting together, getting fights like Jim Miller, like these are big deal fights. And, I'm looking at the lines right now and Solecki's coming in again, minus 250 favorite. We just looked at a similar fight, Jim Miller and Scott Holtzman, both coming in at plus 200 dogs. I think that these are both very, very well-versed veterans that could pull off an upset against 2 guys where I'm just not seeing as much of the huge hype that I should, I guess, because of what they've now been able to do in the UFC. Like I said, I don't think Jim Miller is an Austin Hubbard. I do think that he's going to pose a lot more problems, especially when it comes to kind of locking in that type of grappling. Jim Miller's no slouch in those close quarters. And the same thing can be said for Scott Holtzman. So when you're looking at the way both these guys fight, I think that these lines are a little off. But at the same time, I don't think that they both should either be favored, Scott or Jim. But I think that in both cases, veteran presence, being able to read the game plan early and then impose their own will. These are two fights where you could easily see an underdog pull it off.